Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's about 11 a.m., so good late morning. Today, I'm here at a park that I have driven past on the road probably over 100 times. I've never actually been to this park, and I actually want to explore and check this out. I think this is pretty cool because life is about, experiencing cool things that life has to offer. I mean, that's one of the many things that you can choose to be the purpose of your life, and for me it's one of the key ones because I've always lived a moderately mediocre life that I had to tolerate, and I didn't really enjoy that. So this is just a pure example of how I just kind of squeeze the life out of my day, or at least try to, by making things that seem normal to most people into the best situation they can be. So never tried out this park before, don't know what it's like, but what I do know is that it's pretty darn crowded and packed on this beautiful Saturday morning. You can kind of see there's like cars everywhere. I actually got pretty lucky. As you can see, there's a couple straggler parking spots that are open, and I was able to snag a seat in one of them without much effort. Like sometimes, there's those parking situations that everyone's been in where there's just so many people that you have to hunt around for like half an hour and then snipe a spot and just be very aggressive to get one. Today, it's populated, but you can kind of see that there's empty spots every here and there, which is like almost perfect because it's just popular enough that that this park is good, but not so popular that it becomes a hassle. Now I'm wearing my Gucci Versace Supreme Hybrid Collab white v-neck t-shirt. Just kidding. It's a Gap t-shirt, v-neck, and I'm wearing these Versace off-white black Essentials shorts, which by Gucci Versace I pretty much mean it's Under Armour. So I'm here today and I really kind of want to explore this park, and it just goes to show you, like, if you're delaying on something, like, you have to find some way of stop procrastinating and get it done at some point. I've been wanting to go to this park. It's been on the back burner. It's not a huge priority, but it's a moderate priority. And I finally got to it. You have to let things actually happen at some point rather than delay it until you die and never end up getting to it. So how do you do that? Well, you have to set out time. You have to have the free time and plan it out so that you at the very least can do that. Now, I didn't plan it out in advance and say like 2 weeks from now I'm definitely going to this park, but I had that free time set out so that when I had that, I could go and do something. On top of that, it's about pretty much prioritizing and living a life that you want to live. I wanted to chase something that was more fun and exciting, which pretty much meant outdoors. And I was sick of staying home all the time playing Fortnite, and one way of getting out was going to this park. Plus, what do girls say? Like, the first thing girls say when they're reviewing or critiquing Tinder profiles or Bumble profiles, it's, this guy only has pictures while they're inside. Like, this guy never goes outside. He never does anything active. Which brings me to my next point. I wanted to make this a 2-in-1 by actually shooting some photos outdoors. That's something that I've started to realize. I've been getting more into photography, and I realize I don't have any active outdoor photos of myself, which is not a good thing to have. If you only have selfies of yourself, that doesn't look too good to anyone, especially if they're indoor bathroom selfies. So, what's the second most popular thing girls say when they critique dating photos or dating profiles? Well, it's that I prefer a guy who's active out and outdoorsy versus someone who's intentionally trying to show off their body. So like they prefer pictures where you're kind of like showing off your athleticism and your body without intentionally showing it off. So, you know, I'm only human. I don't have like super sports outdoors photos of me playing professional basketball or soccer. So I'm gonna do next best thing. I have my phone here, and I'm just gonna take a few outdoorsy pictures. So let's go ahead and do that. It's also pretty cool because it's a best of 3 worlds, since the third thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to do something outdoorsy and fun but not have to drive too far, and that's because my Camry is experiencing some engine issues, and the repair shop pretty much has me they want me to drive it for 1,000 miles and then bring it back to check like the oil consumption, and I can't do that efficiently if I drive too much, because then I'll go over the $1,000 or 1,000 miles limit, and that won't be too good because it'll be over and I'll have to do it again. So I think I'm just gonna kind of set up over there. As you can see, it's pretty much, from what I can tell, there's a lot of recreational sports stadiums. I don't know if you can tell, but over there you can see a bunch of people playing baseball, it seems. And there's another stadium which you can kind of hear the noise from over there. This definitely seems to be more of a family park for children and for teenagers who are in some type of sports league, which is something I'm somewhat familiar with. I played rec t-ball, soccer, I was on the track and field and cross country team, and the swim team. So let's get to it. I'm just gonna put this down here. Oh, another pro tip. If you're using your iPhone to take pictures, always use the back camera, not the front camera, because the back camera has a larger depth and distance perception and has more megapixels, so you can get better quality photos on the same phone. Okay, so I just realized something else. I need to like prop this video camera up somehow, as well as my phone, otherwise like I won't be able to see my body. But there's nothing to prop it with, so unfortunately you're just gonna see my legs, and I think I'm just gonna cut it off here. Alright guys, I took about 7 pictures with the 10-second timer on. I couldn't see what the picture would look like since the phone was facing the other way, so I tried my best, and the shots came out like moderately okay. Like, they weren't the most flattering in terms of lighting or whatever. I tried to play around with lighting and different poses, but I didn't want to spend like, I'm not a photo expert or anything, and I didn't want to be a prima donna and spend like, I don't like spending like an hour just taking photos here. I didn't come here just to take photos. So I took a few photos of me with different poses, just like stretching a little bit, and I guess I'm going to show you a few of them. None of them, in my opinion, were really that fantastic. I was just doing a few stretches and playing with the lighting so that I didn't have this huge shadow on my face and you couldn't see anything. But now I have some outdoor photos I can take or use. So here, take a look. I don't know if you can see these because of the sun outside. It might be causing the camera to not show these, but I mean, they're all right. But like, you can kind of tell the shadows make it like near impossible to see my face, and there's too many cars behind me. I mean, it's okay, like these are not the most flattering for me. You can kind of see my belly there. This one I was trying to like squat down, but I didn't want to squat down too low, so I had this like weird half squat. Nonetheless, I do have some photos now, so now I'm going to just leave this iPhone in the car so that I can go on my run. So when I was a bit younger, I would like to explore every crevice of a town or city or college campus or anything I could find, because I didn't grow up in a huge city, so I got bored often. And why not find as much as you can about a certain area or certain thing? At least that would spice up my life and make it more interesting and fun. I'm not going to do that now with the park. I will kind of explore a lot of it, but I've learned through experience that sometimes it can be more of a hassle than fun. You pretty much just exploring certain areas and they're just like what you'd expect them to be, nothing special. But what I will do is kind of check out this lacrosse game going on. I think this is pretty cool. So it looks like they're pretty much doing a little bit of a tailgate there. They have the tent set up, food, water set up. It's pretty intense for like a lacrosse game. Like even with the recreational soccer games, which we had on just as clean, new and fresh fields, like the adults would come, but they wouldn't come with like food and like barbecue or anything like that, or a tent. They'd just be like sitting in the stands here and like observing. Speaking of lacrosse, fun fact, little story, when I was in high school, I did end up trying out for the lacrosse team. I spent like 6 months like preparing, like learn lacrosse from scratch, all this stuff. Would practice against the wall like every day after school. Oh, check out, it's starting. Yeah, this sport is kind of like hockey, where it moves pretty fast, like, and it's like you really have to be adept to like catch the ball. If you miss, the ball's gone. It's hard to even keep track of like where the ball is. So back to my little story. Tried out and actually got pretty far in the tryouts. Ultimately, the coach pulled me aside and, you know, because it was so brand new to me and I wasn't experienced with it, and I was like so much scrawnier than the other kids. He was like, you know what, I don't want to cut you, I'm not gonna cut you, but for safety reasons, you know, I don't think it'd be best if you were on this team. So he was very graceful with it, and at the time, like, it made a lot of sense looking back. Like, I was not as experienced as the other guys on the sport, but had this crazy idea that I wanted to do it. And ultimately, I think it worked out for the better, because I had no idea how much work and effort was behind this sport, and it wouldn't have been fun for me. Like, the team I tried out for was like really intense. Like they would practice for like 2 to 3 hours after school, which just sucks away your time to like do anything else, whether it's play Fortnite, League of Legends, or simply study and do well in school. So that's my long story short of it. Let's go check out this place. I don't want to just kind of like walk around and ramble. I actually want to exercise a bit. So we'll do a little bit of a jogging, sprintish tour of what this park has to offer. There's a food truck that seems to be serving crab. It's quite interesting. I'm assuming quite expensive. They got shrimp with fries, breaded shrimp with fries, coconut shrimp with fries. Man, I bet this tastes great. Bit of a line here.
It's like, yeah, well, that's what I said. And I was like, I don't know who's pointing a finger.
Man, the grass here, I mean, it's artificial, but it's very soft. You can almost bounce up and down on this. Based on my exceptionally small amount of lacrosse expertise and the sheer amount of tents and food and Chick-fil-A that you see in the background here, I'd assume that this is not some recreational lacrosse game. These must be very established people. I mean, look at their uniforms, like it's full out. And the way they catch their sticks and feint and spin the other way. My educated guess is that this is like some authority tournament of a game. It's pretty cool. Let me ask someone. So I was wrong. This is actually a national lacrosse tournament. There's teams from all over the country looking to compete here, and that would explain all the tents and the higher level of seriousness of this whole event. I think it's pretty cool. Like any level of competition at an elite level, whether it's sports, business, anything really, chess, checkers, board games, anything like that is something that I admire a lot. I think the level of dedication and practice, but not just like work ethic, but also symbolism towards what you need to live a great life is admirable. Now the difference is that like with sports, you really have to focus in, hyper-focus on like one super specific area and succeed, almost sometimes neglecting others. Whereas I think with life success, it's more about balance. Like if you neglect your family and your happiness and your health and only focus on wealth or the success in your career or business, that's not a successful life. So I'm gonna piece out of this lacrosse thing and kind of do a little jog around this park and see if there's any trails or anything going on here. Today there's actually a bunch of stuff that I could have gone and done if it wasn't for my car. There's an event called a 5K and EDM. event, which pretty much as it sounds means that you run a 5K in EDM gear, and then afterwards you go to an EDM concert. It was like pretty affordable too, like 15 bucks got you entry into both, plus they gave you all this like EDM gear to wear, from like glow sticks to headbands, all sorts of cool supplies and merch. Now it sounded fun, but I don't know if I would have been able to run a 5K. I mean, I could have, but it would have been a stretch. Like, you typically want to build up to something like that so that you don't die and you don't get injured. So I haven't run a 5K for a long time, since cross country, and I've only been doing very short distance runs. Shout out to my timing my 1 mile run vlog from a few weeks ago. So I wouldn't have been prepared for that, but I don't know. Maybe I would have tried it out and like negotiated with them to kind of like run like half a mile, and then just like waited for the rest of them to finish, cheered them on in spirit, and gone to the EDM concert. Another thing I've never done. So really, I think that's what life is about. There's a quote by a guy called Billy Jean, who probably took it from someone else. Billy Jean's an entrepreneur, but the quote goes, "Don't dwell on the lack of resources you have. Focus on how much more resourceful you can be." And I've really taken that to heart. You know, of course I don't live in Las Vegas with millions of dollars, so I can't do all these crazy things. I'm sure most of you can't either yet. Like, I don't know, fly on a private jet and then swim, you know, go to one of the top restaurants in the world and then swim with dolphins at one of the top aquariums. I can't do that, but there's still plenty of stuff that I can do if I would just look up from my computer, stop building forts and dying immediately in Fortnite, get into the real world, stay active, and see what's out there. So if it wasn't for that car situation, for sure I probably would have gone to that EDM thing. And it also goes to show you that you can like negotiate a bit. Like, maybe you can't do the whole 5K. That doesn't mean that you just give up. You know, you be polite, kind, and just ask, hey, maybe I could do a half mile. I'm still paying the 15 bucks entry fee, so you're getting paid. But can I just do half a mile and then go to the EDM concert? And you'll be surprised, sometimes they'll say yes. So now I'm in the other part of the facility and they're playing baseball. Man, this place is quite clean, new, and big. They're just playing like touch football. Two people there playing tennis. Man, this place is too big, man. Finally some water. It's like 80 degrees out. I'm also getting a little sore throat from talking too much to keep the vlog interesting. I'm not complaining, just kind of commentating to keep it interesting. Check that out, a deer. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's a deer running that way. This place is swarming with deer, like most other places. I used to think that they were extinct, but turns out they're overpopulated. Man, I'm telling you, like, people complain that the human civilization or the world as a whole and all its species will die out if a nuclear war happens or we get hit by an asteroid, but in all honesty, like, certain animals, cockroaches, rats, mice, and deer, they're going to rule the world. They'll probably not even be affected much by nuclear war because they're so resistant to all that stuff. I mean, Mother Nature is probably the most resilient thing ever. So I think it's, when they talk about saving the world, it's really about saving the human species. I think some variation of DNA will live on, whether it's microorganisms, bacteria, cockroaches, or deer. Keep jogging and give me some time to not say anything, just enjoy the ambience of me jogging. Fun fact, this is my 6th day in a row of working out. Typically, I do 5 days of CrossFit on the weekdays when the gym is open. It's technically open on Saturday mornings too, but that's when I sleep in. So I work out 5 days a week. That's abnormal. Many people who join CrossFit are new and they don't stick with it long, and they tend to only come maybe once or twice a week. So that's kind of abnormal. Again, I've talked about this in my email newsletters and blog posts about how I have managed to go from someone who spent 10 years not being consistent with fitness to someone who is very consistent by implementing simple principles. 3 major principles I learned from studying the science of habit formation. So check all that stuff out if you go to my site and search habits, or you go to Google, search my name and habits, or you join my email newsletter. I've a very brief set of emails that will be sent to you over a couple of days that explain how I was able to hack my habits. But just another cool thing for you guys. So right now I'm just looking for a trail. So far it seems to be just a bunch of sports stadiums and restrooms, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but a real park needs some running trails, which I think I'm about to come up on. So this park, like many parks, runs right along some residential houses. I think it's a good or bad thing, depending on what you're after. Good for people who want that type of life. You know, you will live here and then you will take 2 steps out and you can run along this park. The unfortunate nature of humanity, or at least the average person, and you'll see this with home buying or CrossFit or anything else, is that they purchase and act and structure their lives in ways that they want to be, but when it's time to execute, they don't. So they'll buy a CrossFit membership, won't exercise with it. They'll buy a home next to a park, hoping to run on the trails every day. They never leave their house. They just stay inside and play video games and watch Netflix all day. So just another insight that you can have that will put you a leg up on most people. Rather than structure your life in a way where it's how you want to be, and it's too much of a stretch for you to actually do that, I usually structure it around how it actually is, and then takes, make it as easy as possible. Take small steps so that you can start moving how you want to. So you probably want a real example. Go to the gym for 5 minutes a day rather than an hour a day, because the 5 minutes gets you out the door, starts you building that habit. The hour that you set will just be so intimidating that you never get started. So now we're coming up on a fork. Once again, that's the Lacrosse place we were just at. Okay, so here's what I have to say. Will Smith, when he was awarded the Kids' Choice Award on Nickelodeon, he went up to the crowd, accepted his reward, and said he was going to reveal the 2 secrets to success. Now, this was interesting because this was back in the day where self-help wasn't as big. People weren't really giving advice on this, and documentation was limited. But you can still find this on YouTube. If you search Will Smith Kids' Choice Award, you'll find it. And he says the secrets to success are running and reading. And he's affirmed this again a couple of times. One of those times was with Jim Kwik. If you search Jim Kwik, Kwik, you can find proof on YouTube and Facebook. But Jim Kwik is Will Smith's personal memory coach, and Jim asked him, and Will said the same thing again. This was in 2018, so happened recently. He says running and reading. I find that very fascinating. It's because that's something I've developed and learned from other successful people, and I think I liken this to what's called convergent evolution, where independently of others' influences or advice, people or species identify the most efficient, effective, successful strategy for them, which happens to be very similar or the same. In this case, Will Smith discovered the power of running and reading. Now, do you have to run? No, I think he just means like exercise. And he goes on to say that how running helps improve your willpower, your discipline, and of course your fitness, because each time you want to stop, that's when you push, and that's where you train the muscle. So if you really hate running, it doesn't have to be running. It could be anything else that kind of trains that exercise and mind component where you really want to stop, but you shouldn't, and that's really where your willpower muscle gets trained. Shout out to the book Willpower Instinct, a fantastic book on breaking down the science of that conscious part of your brain. Speaking of, I should probably start running more. Another cool thing that might be worth your time to know, reading. Now, reading is something that's been debated. Gary Vaynerchuk has admitted that he's only read 3 books, his own, in his lifetime, but maybe he's the exception that proves the rule. or maybe not. I don't think reading alone will get you successful. I did a video about how I read 241 books and on these topics, and I didn't all of a sudden become a millionaire traveling the world. Like, reading alone doesn't do it unless you take action on it. Warren Buffett says if reading was all you needed to be successful, librarians would be the richest people in the world. Now, I've known quite a few librarians over my life because I'm in the library quite often. I mean, why buy a book when you could borrow it for free? And I wouldn't say they read too much nowadays. Like, they know how to organize and catalog books and store them, but not necessarily read. They don't read as much as me. But I get the point. Like, the point is that people who consume a lot of information without taking action on it are effectively useless. It's just potential energy that you're never using. It's just potential that you never tap into. So reading and running, which I think is very coincidental and magical for me personally, because I tend to love audiobooks, and out of all the sports I played, running was the main one. It wasn't basketball, it wasn't soccer, it wasn't hockey, it was running. So out of everyone, I kind of do both already quite often, except now where I'm vlogging and running. Check it out, yet another lacrosse game or soccer games going on there. Speaking of vlogs, Shay Tard and his family have returned to the vlogging world on YouTube after a 1-year break. Now, this is very fascinating for many reasons. One being, he came back stronger than ever. 1 year off YouTube, and he has more subscribers than ever. He gets more views on his daily vlogs than he did before he took the break. It's incredible. So, I mean, it just speaks to, like, how is that possible? Well, I watched a few YouTube creator videos from actual programmers of Google, and they explain how they're making sure not to negatively influence or derank anyone who takes a break. They want to make their algorithm purely based on independent individual videos, specifically because they don't want people to feel like they're on the hamster wheel or have to keep putting out videos at the cost of creative quality, rather than taking the break they need, whether it's a 1-month break or a 6-month break, or in Shay Tard's case, a 1-year break. So, I mean, it also makes me wonder, like, how have they been able to do that? And I have theories, but who knows the actual truth? Everyone has theories and opinions. But my theories are that they've been able to really master that bond they have with their audience. I mean, I've seen a ton of YouTube channels. I've been watching YouTube since almost when it started. Back when 100,000 subscribers meant you were the #1 subscribed channel. And I've seen channels die and fail. Some didn't take breaks and they still fell to the wayside, such as Peter Chow's channel, or say Athene Wynn's channel. So I don't know. I think my theories are that Shay Tards have been able to do this because they've kept up with the times. They've made their thumbnails increasingly more interesting. They've also made sure to have a personal bond be forged with not just one character, but like the 10 different people in their family. They're also they have huge extroverted, outgoing, interesting personalities. So there's always something that they're doing and talking about, even if they're doing something that's like pretty standard, like buying groceries. They're not just going to buy groceries. They're going to make it fun somehow, which I find very fascinating. I think, you know, someone else's success should not detract from yours. I learned that from many successful individuals, from Gary Vaynerchuk to this new guy, Dan Lok. And I think there's definitely some truth to that. Wealth is not a zero-sum game. So the fact that this guy who can come out of nowhere, who was paid like below average income, working 80 hours a week to detail furniture, to somehow being able to, you know, make a ton of money vlogging with his family, even though he's like doesn't have like exceptional animation skills or film editing skills like Casey Neistat. It should inspire others to think it's possible. I'm not saying it's easy, and of course there's all this competition, but at the very least it's possible. So very fascinating thing. I mean, there's all these dynamics and factors that would make it seem like he shouldn't do this. And him and his family probably thought a lot about this. I mean, there's other factors, like the fact that when he leaves, that opens a space for other competitor vlogging families to come in and take that mind share, because everyone wants their fix, and all of a sudden Shade Top stopped uploading. So what are they going to do at that time? They're going to find some other vlogging family to fill it. But somehow they've managed to do this well, and I understand the reasons too. It's like with Shaytards and other vlogging families and couples have mentioned this as well, like Prank versus Prank. Jesse Wells, I think his name is. Daily vlogging is not mentally healthy. They've come out and said this. They've said like no one should really daily vlog. Apparently it's like a mixture of like all the horrible comments coming at you, plus always feeling like your life has to be a show and not just being able to live it, and all these other hassles and struggles with documenting your personal life. So totally makes sense to me why they should take a break. It's a very strange profession, and it's reserved to the few who can take it and are willing to take it for the income that it provides, or whatever other value it gives them, the fulfillment, impact, influence, positive impact. And so I think Shaytards have done a pretty good job, and they're not perfect. They have admitted that they've had struggles too. Money itself doesn't solve everything. I don't follow them closely, but I do know that they are struggling through divorce things. They don't want to get a divorce, so they're trying to work it through their marriage. But it's just a tough situation because they have like 10 kids now. So very fascinating issue. Plus, they've set up systems to make it easier for them. And they're branching out too. They have a clothing brand, Trixin, and they've defined a specific day of the week. I think it's Sunday, where they don't vlog. Every day of the week they vlog except Sundays. So I could talk about this for a long time, but I'm not. The last thing I want to say is that Roman Atwood is very special. I think he has such positivity about him, such optimism, such a great story. And for some reason, him and his family have been able to daily vlog with no clear signs of psychological issues and do it very successfully, probably more profitably than anyone alive for the last couple years. They've been just climbing like 4 million views per vlog, making a killing with like 13 million subscribers. And I'm really happy for them. I think money is not the only thing you need for happiness, but they're doing a great job. And the fact that Roman Atwood worked as a factory worker for like 15 plus years before he made it, I mean, it's awe-inspiring. I think if I was in that situation, I would have given up. I mean, that type of life where you're just, doing repetitive labor, I would have thought it was over. I would have just been like, this is my life. It sucks. I hate it. And it's going to be like this until I die. and it's just going to be barely tolerable, and I'm going to make barely any money, and that's going to be it. I mean, he was able to do that for like 15 plus years. Then one day he started posting prank videos for fun after doing skits, and then that blossomed, and then now he's doing vlogs. So what's my point behind this? I'm going to turn around and head back. Big point is we live a long life, and Roman's like such a positive person. He always has been, very kind, positive guy. The pranking thing is the only area where he kind of gets negative. Like, I mean, other than that, like, even his pranks are kind of done in like a lighthearted way. He's not trying to hurt anyone with them most of the time. And so this guy's been able to build something incredible later in his life. I know he looks like 20 years old, but he's like in his like 40s or something now. And it brings me hope. It should bring you hope too. If your life isn't as it seems yet, and it seems like it's just going to be like this forever. Like, look at this guy, Roman Atwood, factory worker for most of his life, and now he's done something different. So that's kind of where I'm headed to, and that's why I'm trying to get an early start. I want to throw out these fish hooks so that there's a chance that it can blossom. If I was a factory worker and all I did was do factory work every day, your chances of success or changing your situation are lessened. But if you are effectively throwing out these fish hooks, like Roman eventually started doing by making YouTube videos, you can potentially change your situation. You don't know where that video or that networking event or meeting that one person and making their day with no expectations can bring you. Maybe that person 2 years later turns into the head executive of Sony, and she remembers you, and all of a sudden you have a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance of getting a job at a new place, or just getting an opportunity to meet someone, which may blossom into, I don't know, a better life. Fascinating stuff. I don't know. It's very interesting, this whole world. Speaking of networking events, or the entertainment industry as a whole, makes you wonder, like, is it worthwhile to just keep going to networking events day after day, throwing out these fish hooks, seeing if something will bite? And from what I've heard from networking books and successful networkers, it really depends. I think it can help, but when you think about it, no one's really become super successful or wealthy purely by going to networking events. You have to have something else to add to the table. Like Jamie Foxx, yeah, he pretty much socially manufactured the connections he did with very little money through parties. And he did that by going to P. Diddy and saying, I can throw a party better than your $1 million party with nothing but a bowl of KFC. And then he started doing this thing where he would invite people and he'd be like, P. Diddy has confirmed that he's showing up. And so on and so forth, where he leveraged who else was coming on to get more people who were successful to show up. But he brought something to the table. He was like a really good musician. And at the party, he leveraged it to create songs with Kanye West and meet Pharrell. But if you're just a networker, I guess you can kind of get there. And I don't know. I think it's an art, and it's not something that I'm personally too good at. And maybe I shouldn't focus too much on that. I'm usually pretty bad. I've been able to improve my social skills, but haven't been able to really dive deep into that stuff. Plus, I've seen it fall to the wayside. A lot of these online marketers have tried this strategy, but because they've built it on uncertainties and a bit of deception, it's fallen apart like a house of cards. Basically, they started with like 1 or 2 successful people who said they might attend. They didn't confirm they would attend. And then they paraded it around to all these other successful people saying that these people have confirmed to attend. But then once like all these people have RSVP'd, turns out the initial people weren't going to attend after all. And then others found out, and then you look like a complete deceptive trickster, which destroys your reputation, and everyone else stops showing up, which destroys the conference or live event, or online expo, whatever the thing is that you're trying to build. So it goes both ways. For me, and something that you could potentially do if you're new to this, like throwing fish hooks concept, is to just do something, even if it's a small step, to build that potential or where your opportunities and chances of changing your life increase. So rather than just sitting there playing Fortnite all the time, or League of Legends, or any game, some virtual reality game, you can film a video, put it on YouTube like I'm doing. Go outside. Maybe you'll bump into someone and that could turn into something. Or some networkers will say, when you go to a networking event, this is what I learned from Tim Han over at Success Insider after I interviewed him for my podcast. Just find one quality connection at that event. It's not about quantity, just quality. Find that one person that you can give a lot of value from. And for me personally, I've tried the quantity game at networking events, or a hybrid of them, where I would kind of still focus on quantity, but make each conversation last for like 2 to 3 minutes, so it was still some quality there. Those didn't work out too well, because you just jump from person to person, and at the end of the day you're like, okay, that was cool, I talked to these people, got a very surface level understanding of who they are. I don't think I'll see any of these people again. Darn, I don't know if that was really as impactful as I could have been. Now the quality game, just talking to one person, it can seem kind of bad, because you're just talking to that one guy and you're like, I've been talking to this guy for an hour, I look like a loser, I want to talk to someone else, but this guy won't stop talking to me. I think it's really up to you. Like, you don't have to stay for an hour talking to one guy at a networking event. You could talk to him for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, but that's still much deeper and more qualitative. And if you can add value, not just talk at him or talk to him, but like see how you can add value, you'll be more memorable, and you'll build that social equity or social capital, whatever you want to call it. So our conversations diverge to networking, but not a big deal overall. I mean, ultimately, we're all here on this earth trying our best to make it. So let's just have some fun along the way. Keep in mind, what are you doing all this for? So I am effectively lost. Not super lost. I think I took a wrong turn. I kept going straight when I should have took a left turn. So I'm gonna backtrack and try and return to where I'm supposed to be. I'm ready to go home now. I think I probably walked a distance of maybe 3 miles, maybe 2 miles at this point, at least by the time I get back to my Camry. Now the issue, not issue, but the adventure or obstacle is that on top of being a little bit lost and backtracking, which will probably make me have to walk more, it's really hard to run rather than just walk. You know, I'm hot. I haven't eaten anything since about 10 p.m. last night. No, it's not intentional intermittent fasting. I just have a constant theme of preferring to eat late and not eating anything for breakfast. I know there's this whole new fad that I've experimented with that you're probably aware of called intermittent fasting, but I didn't do that intentionally. I just tend to not eat in the mornings. And on top of that, if you're Asian or pretty much if you're American, your parents, like mine, have told me, especially my grandparents, told me since like the dawn of time that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You should eat it, which I think Jeff Nippard, he's a very science-backed fitness YouTuber. He did a fantastic job of debunking most of this myth from a bodybuilding and caloric intake and nutrition standpoint. His main point was that it doesn't matter when you eat as long as you know your calorie intake and macros are on point and your time window is something that's sustainable. And he cited a bunch of studies to prove this. So cool thing there. I'm starting to ramble again. I'm gonna start running. Whoa, almost tripped there. Okay, so if any of you are ever having trouble coming up with things to say, it's very fascinating, but meditation does wonders for this, because with meditation and this whole idea of trying to calm your mind and clear your thoughts, you realize how hard it is to clear your thoughts and how there's so much you can talk about and ramble about when you're trying to not think. And so essentially when you're pushing those thoughts away, you realize, you know what? I really have no lack of things I could talk about when I'm trying, and I can probably employ these or many of them when I'm running out of things to say to a girl or anyone else. But the thing is, what you realize is you unconsciously filter. So you have all these filters in your brain, and you filter out all these thoughts because they're inappropriate, not formal enough, not funny enough, not interesting enough, not relevant enough, all the way until that flood of thoughts gets filtered to zero. So one thing that helps with that is just practicing on lifting some of those filters. It doesn't have to be all those filters, but some of them. Improv is a great way of doing that because you put on the spot to come up with something to say, preferably funny, preferably related to the scene you're doing. A few improv workshops I've done, about maybe probably like 15 improv classes now, probably less, maybe 10, and they've been very helpful. And I wouldn't say I'm really an expert at social skills. I would say I started severely below average and I've progressed to slightly above average, though at times and with certain contexts I still dip to below average, but generally speaking slightly above average now. So if I can do that, you can improve your social intelligence and social skills. Just think about what I'm doing here. I've been rambling for what seems like an hour, feeling hungry and not sore, but like a bit tired and thirsty and wanting to just teleport back to my home, or at least a plate full of delicious food. And can't do that yet. been able to talk for so long. This is how you build your willpower. You run when you don't want to. Hopefully this is the right turn. Otherwise, I don't know. I was hoping I didn't have to shower if I kept it to a light sweat, but looks like it's hot enough and stinky enough that a shower is inevitable. Not the worst thing in the world, because at least you can do a quick shower. Jose Zuniga from Teaching Men's Fashion on YouTube, he says like you can do a quick shower. Your showers don't have to last half an hour. You can get it done in 5 minutes or less if you're efficient with your time. I really hope this is the right way. I think it is, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it is. What makes it a little bit worse is that I think it's about 85 degrees out right now. When I checked on my phone, it was about 80, but I think it's increased. The sun is about, it's not 180 degrees. I would say it's about 165 degrees above me right now. It's beating down on me. Makes it harder to sustain. But glad I didn't do that 5K. I'm gonna make sure I don't get dehydrated. I think that's something that happens all the time. Happened to my dad once. Like, I was aware of it. Like, okay, so I was a freshman in high school, and my dad and I and the rest of the family went on a hiking mountain trail tourist excursion in some mountain in China. So I went there. Haven't visited China since, basically, long story short, I made sure to keep drinking water because I knew dehydration was a factor. This guy didn't. Temperatures were sweltering hot. He wasn't in shape, and a bunch of other factors came into place. He fell into dehydration, horrible situation, went to the hospital. So prevention is key. As Charlie Munger says, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. Now, here I am trying to prevent dehydration and cardiovascular disease with exercise, but you're probably wondering, how does he keep pulling all these quotes from successful people and references out of his head? That's just another side effect of constantly investing in yourself. You might think that I'm some type of genius or something, but I'm pretty average in terms of IQ. I just spend like a couple hours, maybe 2 tops, every day consuming advice from successful people via audiobooks, podcasts, YouTube videos. If you do that for long enough, a few years, it starts adding up, and you just kind of like, one thing reminds you of another. I'm gonna do a switcheroo and switch back to the topic of running out of things to say with a girl. As you can see, heat is starting to make me a little bit slightly exhausted, which means that from an improv standpoint, filters are gone. Just like how people in improv will do like 24-hour shows, and in the last hour, as I've seen, they're just so tired and sleep exhausted that all these filters that they have are gone. I'm starting to slightly just say what I want. So back to the topic of running out of things to say with a girl. Those tips I gave you, sometimes they work. Sometimes, despite them, they still won't. Because with a girl, here we are, we're back at this place where I was talking earlier. We're almost home free. With a girl, it's fascinating how what works on paper with theory doesn't work in practice always. So sometimes that stuff will work with the whole idea of, removing your filters, taking improv, and just talking about all these different things on your plate. Sometimes that still doesn't work. Like sometimes a girl only likes talking about shopping and TV shows, and you don't watch those TV shows, and you don't like shopping at the stores that she does. You're just screwed. Like it's never gonna be a perfect match or a good match with every girl, and that's okay. It's usually relatively easy if you have developed a certain level of social skills to talk with anyone for about 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, because of all the things that you can with social skills. But for someone to be like a lifelong friend or even like a good friend, like there's a point where you don't want to stretch too far. Like you don't want to bend over backwards trying to become friends with someone who's just clearly not a good fit. They don't have the same interests, tastes, strengths, fascinations. So, made it back to the parking lot. Dumpsters to my right. I can see my car. My Toyota Camry's in sight. This heavy 7-pound Canon Vixia camera is just weighing me down. At least it's kind of building my shoulder muscles, but at this point, as I jog across this freshly cut grass away from that lacrosse tournament, I raise my left fist in victory. I'm 10 feet away from my Camry. I've made it home free. Oh my gosh, that was a lot harder than I thought.